What's up, Tutorinos? Welcome back to the Game Addicts Podcast, the show where we talk about the modern and retro video games that we play and collect. I am this podcast player, one Brando, and joining me here today is this podcast player two, Mike.
Hello.
What's going on, dude?
Well, you know, it's early. Just sitting here, having my Hyrule coffee.
You have your Hyrule coffee?
Best brew in the whole land. Just so
Hey.
you know, these beans come from the Hyrule fields.
Now, is that special brew? Is that made from Korok seeds?
Yes.
Yeah, Korok
Yes.
seeds. Now that must have been a very
but it's
arduous
still
task.
coffee beans. It's still coffee beans, but they did add some seeds for that little bit of kick.
All right, cool. I'm with it. Now, as you
It bites
said,
back.
yeah. And not to mention how arduous it must have been to find every last one of those seeds, man. You had to go out hunting for them, lifting up all these rocks, and they're hiding everywhere. But as you said, it's early in the morning. We are pre-recording this for a reason. We've done 2 of these now, and we didn't really mention it. Maybe we did in the last one, but the reason, just to let you guys know, in case you guys don't know, we are pre-recording these retrospectives because Mike has an impending surgery. We don't know when that is, and we will hopefully find out tomorrow as we recorded this.
Yes.
But we're not sure exactly when that's going to fall. We assume it's going to be soonish. And so we don't know. It's a pretty big surgery. It has to do with like reconstructing nasal passage, all that kind of stuff. Well, needless to say, Mike's already had one of those kind of, at least a surgery up here, and he's soldiered through a podcast. And I don't want to make him do that, especially.
It was horrible.
Well,
I was just like,
but it was actually it was horrible for you, but it was actually a really good podcast. We had a good buddy on from the UK on, and we were able to sort of like not utilize you as much. But then, of course, once like midway through, you just started talking all of a sudden.
yeah, I had to gather my strength.
Anyway, we are doing these series of retrospectives. We do these from time to time when we look back on the past. Whether that's a series, a game that we did last time, systems, which we're doing today. It has been a while since we have done an actual system. I think since episode 100 was the last one we did the Wii and Wii U. Due to the enormous popularity and sales of the Wii and the not so much of the Wii U, we bundled it in with it because it would be difficult to get an hour and a half out of the Wii U for both of us. As much as I do like that system, as much as I really enjoy the Wii U, it would be difficult to like go on ad nauseum about it.
Yes.
But today is the PS3. Now, for a warning, Mike didn't have one until the very end.
Yes, so I am not very apt on the on this system. I do know enough, so I feel like I can riff a little bit. But as of like really in it from the get go, I definitely did not have $700 to drop. So I went with a 360 on D-Day.
To be fair,
I loved it, but I also burned it up. And that is a fact that I would like to state, is that I didn't hear about any PS3s, like massive quantities, shutting off.
Now, on the fat models, the original models, and we're just going to get right into it. I've got a picture for that one. The fat model, which is going on screen right now. There it is. I'm gonna turn off studio mode. There it is. So if you're watching this on the stream that we're doing this sort of live on the YouTube video. I'm gonna have pictures and stuff up as we go along. But this is the original fat model. Now there were 3 different models of the fat model. There was the intro 20 gig, which was $400. $500 for 20 gigabytes of memory. You didn't get all of the memory adapters. You only got 2 USBs. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I'm not even sure if that had HDMI on the back of it. I think it did, but there was some things that they skipped. There were some things that they skimped on for the 20 gig, as well as backwards compatibility. The 60 gig was $600, and that had backwards compatibility complete. Basically, the 60 gig had a PS2 in it, which is also why the 60 gigs were known for some overheat issues and what would be called as the yellow light of death. That did happen. It was an issue, but it wasn't as widespread as the 360's red ring of death. I never had that happen to it when I owned it. I had an original fat model. Mike, when you said the words, I never had $600 to $700 to blow on a PS3. I didn't either. But my roommate, Silent Rob, at the time, we had just moved in together, and we were full and young of making bad decisions, and we bought one the summer of 2007. Of course, the console came out in November. I think it was November 17th, 2006 is when the system came out, almost a full year after the 360. We put $300 together between the both of us, picked that up, and picked up a game. Now, I do not have the original game that I got with the system. That was Ninja Gaiden Sigma. I ended up selling it a long time ago. I didn't really care for it that much. But I went out, and then I rented the game. Now, that there are still a few places where you can rent games now. There's not too many. Of course, you have GameFly.
No, there's not.
We went to RIP Hollywood Video, and we rented Spider-Man 3. Of course, it's 2007. This is right when this movie came out. And I loved Spider-Man 2, man. Spider-Man 2 was an awesome game. It's one of the best, until the more recent PS4 Marvel Spider-Man came out, that Spider-Man 2 was the be-all, end-all for Spider-Man game, And I'm like, well, 3, they're just going to do it even better, even though the movie kind of sucked. I'm like, well, the game should be pretty good. So we go out and we rent the game. And for some reason, I remember going home and not putting the game in. I went to the bathroom or something, and Rob had put it in. And he was playing it, I was playing it, and I just remember, man, watching. I'm like, man, this game doesn't look any better. Maybe it's your TV. Maybe we did an HD. I mean, this is back before we had an HD TV, right? We got a PS3 before we actually got an HD TV. Maybe it's the TV. Hell, I didn't know. So
right.
Then he played it for a while, and then I played it. We ended up playing the game all night, and went to bed. Got up the next day. It was Sunday. I got up. No one else is up yet. I turned the game on. I sat down. I grabbed my controller. I'm looking at the screen, and I see the PS2 logo.
Huh. Yeah.
So I get up,
Whoops.
walk over to the console, and lo and behold, they rented me the PlayStation 2 copy of the game, not PS3, which actually PS3 was actually more. It was like a few dollars more or something, because it was a new console, and they kind of hey, PS2s are this much, PS3s are this much. It was a little bit more, not much, but I went in, I got the game. I waited till they opened, because it was probably before they actually opened on Sunday. And I'm like, hey guys, I was here yesterday. I rented this game. My roommate put it in. We played it. I thought it looked like crap. And it turns out it's the PS2 version. I got the PS3. They looked it up just to make sure I wasn't lying. Like, oh crap, my bad. Here, go ahead and take it, and you got just a free day rental, basically. You have an extra day to play it. So I went out and bought the game. This game is actually not cheap. Spider-Man 3 on the PS3, and it's not super expensive,
Right.
But it's not necessarily cheap. My gosh. Trying to open up Game On, I haven't opened it up in forever, and it's like, look at all these things that you can do now.
Isn't it great? That's what I've been trying to look up the.
So, Spider-Man 3, according to Game Eye, complete in box is $13. So that's not expensive, but you like me, being a cheap ass collector, I don't want to pay that. I'd rather pay $5, right? But the original PS3 came out, and of course, it was marred.
It does have HDMI, by the way. The 20 does.
20 gig, okay.
When I'm looking here in the pictures,
I remember
the original launch model. It has HDMI.
I remember the original. You had 2 models of the 360 too, right?
The 360?
Yeah, the very early models of the 360 did not have HDMI.
Let me look.
But there was a lot of negativity about the PS3 because of its expensive price point. Now, this was the first multimedia Blu-ray player on the market where it was a game system and a Blu-ray. It was and honestly, probably a big reason as to why Blu-ray won that format race. But the 60 gig also had, underneath the flap, there's a little flap. You have your drive, and you have this thing looks like a George Foreman grill, right?
Yeah, it was.
And so, like, you have a flap, and underneath that flap would be an SD card. There would be a CF card. So many different kinds of memory cards. A Memory Stick Pro Duo slot. It had 4 different memory card slots for you to be able to transfer memory to and from for pictures and video. And this system was designed to be like your home video hub. Like, put this in, play your games, watch your movies, look at pictures, put music on it. You could do anything you wanted with this thing. Out of the box, the 60 gig could play PS1 and PS2. Then the 80 gigs came out. Slowly, they started phasing out the PS2 compatibility. The reason why they wanted the compatibility is because the PS2 came out and accidentally could play PS1 games. They didn't know it when they were designing it. They didn't figure that in, but they figured out that it could. And since it could, they decided to, well, let's keep all the peripherals the same, the memory cards and the controllers. And that way you can bring your old stuff forward and then use the new stuff for the PS2. They wanted to do the same thing here, and I wish I got it out. I have the little box, the memory card transfer box for the PS3. It cost like $25, and its only use was to plug in your PS2 and PS1 memory cards into it and transfer memory to the PS3. And you couldn't take it. You couldn't go reverse. You couldn't write it from the PS3 back to the memory card. You actually could only do one way. It was a piece of crap.
Hey, buddy.
Unless you had a massive save library that you wanted to bring forward. Like, I had all my Final Fantasies and Resident Evils and all that kind of stuff that I played endlessly on the PS 1 and 2. And I wanted to bring those things forward, man. And, of course, on PS2, I had a lot of stuff. What's up?
So, looking at this, it states, from the stuff that I've been looking at, everything after November 2006 has HDMI built in to the 360. The system was originally launched November 22nd, 2005.
So the first runs of them didn't have it.
So that tells me the first runs did not have them. I can't find actual pictures, but it doesn't show that. So but that clearly is a statement that they came baked in after November of 2006. So that raises the question. The original ones were probably, actually, I'm pretty sure mine was composite.
Well, and you could do, I do think,
because I bought it on the day that they were released.
You could do component video out of them, but not everybody had a component video compatibility. So you can do at least 720p out of it, probably. However, as I said, there's a lot of criticism about the price point of this, and also a big criticism about the lack of games. Now, the PlayStation was riding high. The PS2 is still the best-selling game console ever. Nothing has matched it, and so they were riding high. They were on the top of the mountain, and the thing is that Xbox took a risk. They cut their original console short. The original Xbox lifespan is only 4 years. It's one of the shortest for a mainline, hardware.
Right.
And so from 2001 to 2005, they launched they hurry up and launch the 360. Get out of the gate before the others, before PlayStation and before Nintendo can get their next ones out. And on one hand, you can say it really benefited them. On the other hand, with their massive issues with overheating, oversight, how much that cost them in the long run, over $1 billion.
Now, they did a good job with refurbishing and getting those that still had a warranty and getting it fixed.
Sure.
Now, unlike stupid me, I tore the thing apart and tried to fix it.
Rob bought his from his cousin. And like he had no warranty, so we tore it apart too. That's when I realized that it wasn't really that well made.
Mine got so hot that this is your motherboard. It had pulled the motherboard like this. It warped the motherboard and it had popped the HDMI or the video out completely off of it. So it's like,
wow.
Well, I'm done. There's no fixing that. I mean, I could,
wow.
but I have no idea.
Wow. I mean, on one hand, okay, so Xbox got a lot of players early on, especially when PlayStation came out. Well after the 360 was even like when they announced it, like 360 was coming out that year, and they're like, PlayStation 3 is going to be $500 to $600, and people were just like,
people went flocking to the 360.
Yeah, of
because
course.
there's just what was the price point of it? 360 launch price point. Let me.
I think its highest one was like $400, or maybe it's 400, 500 for the maybe 500 for the Elite, but I want to say 400 is a magic number there, Bob.
You said 400 is the magic number on the top model?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Pro or Premium was $399, and then the core price was $299.
And the core was only 4 gigabyte memory, right?
Yes.
Yeah, those little memory cards you still had to use, or upgrade to the actual big fat hard drive.
But then later on, they made the ones that slid in there. So actually, this one had the base, so it had literally the side of it pulled off.
Yeah.
And then you would snap the whole side in. And then later on, they went to like a square cartridge style, I guess.
So there were games that were going to be coming out that were actually exclusive to the PS3 that then no longer were.
Yes.
And that first one that I can think of is the first Assassin's Creed. That game was going to come out and be exclusive to the PlayStation. But, of course, PS3 kind of had a rocky launch. It took a little while for there to get any games. Of course, there were promises of things to come, right? You had...
right.
And one of the big ones that I remember seeing, and I remember telling you about this before we went on air, was the Killzone 2 trailer. And
right.
And of course, this really wow, this is going to be amazing. And people were talking about how powerful the PS3 is. Of course, the PS3 has a completely new and different architecture with the cell processor. It does it. They were trying to innovate on the PC side, and the downside of it for game development is that it's more difficult to develop for than the Xbox was more for it ran on DirectX, so it was very similar to PC on the 360 side, very easy to develop, and then just move it over to the 360 limitations and hardware. Whereas for the PS3, they pretty much had to reverse engineer this thing to try and figure this thing out because it was cool. It was so different. Now I remember they. The U.S. government bought a bunch of PS3s because on the early days you can put Linux on them and run a custom OS, which is kind of cool. But they took it away, and then you could they system linked all of them together, and basically all these PS3s ran as a supercomputer. It was cheaper to do that than it was to actually invest into a new big supercomputer.
It's funny,
and the government ran off those for. I can't remember what they used them for, But
I have no idea.
But I remember hearing about it, and they used it. Of course, the Killzone 2 trailer ran completely in engine. It was a put together, trailer. This isn't like gameplay. People thought it was gameplay, and they went nuts. Like, this is gonna be the best thing ever. But I mean, anybody watching this can tell that this isn't gameplay. The dude's not playing this. It's like a cutscene, but it's all in-game engine, and it's kind of cool because for way back then when they showed this, that's insane.
Right.
That is insane. Now, the marketing for the PS3, the commercials were freaking weird. You had no idea what the heck this thing was about. And there was one, it was called Beyond. And there was one with this, like, a little baby doll.
It's so creepy.
It is creepy as hell. I remember seeing this. And then the baby's, like, looking at the PS3, and the PS3's looking at him. And then the baby, like, and then starts crying. Like, whoever came up with this, like, this is something from the 90s. I could see this in the 90s. Not
it makes no sense.
Not in the mid 2000s.
Literally makes no sense at all. It's
no.
Just like, and then it starts hovering, and the baby's like, oh my god, and then it's over.
Yeah, play Beyond.
Come on.
So, also when they announced it, they changed the PlayStation controller. You had the DualShock, or originally you had the original one, analog, and then DualShock, and DualShock 2. Analog, DualShock, and DualShock 2 are pretty similar. DualShock 1 and 2 are pretty much identical, except for the insides have like some redesigns and probably some better vibration technology. But this is the controller that they showed us.
Yeah, it's horrid.
This is what's called
Boomerang.
This is called the Boomerang. And
I'm so glad they didn't go with that design.
Oh no, the fans like were kind of outraged about it. And it's just, my hands are big, but I can't imagine that being comfy. Where's the ergonomic in that? And
there's none.
That is one. I know they were trying to be different, and I think there was an issue with patents, which is why they decided to go a completely different way. And it's awful. Look at those buttons sticking up up at the top.
Oh, I know.
And also the sticks.
The sticks don't even look like they'd be good at all.
Okay, so the sticks are analog.
They are?
They are not. Those sticks are the slide sticks, like on the PSP.
I was gonna say those are the PSP slide sticks, aren't they?
They're similar. They probably have a little bit more comfortable of a pad, but they slide instead of rolling.
God, that would be garbage. I wish we could get one.
Dude, there are some people who think that, for a special run, it'd be cool if PlayStation actually made some of these out and put them out for fun. But
well, you remember the PS4 concept controller was very similar to the Boomerang.
I don't remember any other controller except for the one that we got.
Okay.
The first thing that they showed was the one that
maybe
we got.
This is people were taking this and cleaning it up and making it look. They got lots of ads for it. They do that all the time.
But there's one. Okay, so what's funny is that this is shaped kind of like a boomerang, and that made me think of the old PS1 controller concept. Have you ever seen that?
The original PS1 that I can think of.
Before it came out, these have been released now as images. Look at that sucker. Doesn't that look...
You know what, though? That makes sense. Because who were they partnering with?
I know, but they were...
So that to me makes, looking at it, it's weird.
This is after the partnership was over. This controller looks like an upside-down Super Nintendo controller.
With the shoulder buttons.
On the very... It's like this... It's almost like a reverse boomerang in a way.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it only has two shoulder buttons, and it has a plus and minus button, which would be your R1, L1. The circle and cross button are swapped because of course, the Super Nintendo A button, that is cross, so they want it to be all the way over there. They want it to feel similar.
Yep.
Yeah. Some of these weird-ass designs that they've come up with over the years is absolutely ridiculous. But PlayStation started to get their act together a little bit with the PS3, and it took a little while for some games to start trickling out. And I already mentioned Assassin's Creed, but there's another game that was exclusive at first, and then it turned out not to be. And that was Grand Theft Auto 4. Grand Theft Autos 3, Vice City, and San Andreas all had limited exclusivity on the PS2. It ended up going to Xbox eventually. But Grand Theft Auto 4 was also one, hey, limited exclusivity and PS3 sales. And they're like, yeah, no, but it's going to release on both at the same time.
Yeah.
This game, though, spoiler alert, is the highest selling game on the console. And it's sitting at what was it, 25 million?
Yes.
And then there was there were 2 expansions called Episodes from Liberty City. You had The Lost and the Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony. The Lost and the Damned was actually exclusive for a short period to the 360. In fact, that's where I played it because it came out and I wanted to play it, and I just happened to have just got a 360, so I bought it because you can play it standalone.
Right.
Away from the main game. But Grand Theft Auto 4, as much as it's kind of dated now, with them trying out this new engine, they were doing new stuff with it, and they were doing cover shooter mechanics. They improved on everything with it, but it really took everything to the next level. I remember IGN even gave it a 10 at the time, and the 10s weren't willy-nilly. You didn't get a lot of them back then.
No.
But it was kind of cool that they got one. One of the next big games to come out, it came out just 2 months later. I'll never forget this. Because there's not too many games, Mike, that I, over the years, have said, leave me the hell alone while I play my game. And I remember I was working where we work now. And we were working nearly 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And all I did was think about this damn game. I picked it up. By the time I got there, there was only maybe 5 copies left from this one store. And this isn't my original copy. My original copy is sitting over there because just recently I was able to get the limited edition copy. And that's Metal Gear Solid 4. Guns of the Patriots. And this is one of the few games that is still 100% exclusive to PS3.
6 million sold.
6 million copies sold. And this game, quite literally, from the get-go, this is more of an interactive movie sometimes than an actual game. There's a lot of cutscenes, a lot of story being told, because Hideo Kojima is a freaking maniac and decides to make 2 games that build upon older 2 games and expand the universe and end Metal Gear Solid 2 with so many questions. And then the next game, he takes you back into the past and answers none of them.
Yeah.
None of them. The only thing that he does is that now that you played that one in the past, everything makes sense when you get to this game. And it's kind of cool, but it's also like you had to wait 6 years for this game.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget getting it and going back to the apartment and basically just telling her that I'm completely unavailable until I beat this game. I remember it came out on Tuesday, and then I beat it on Saturday, right? And,
Right.
and Saturday was her mom's birthday party, my wife's.
Yes.
And I was expected to go to said birthday party. So I did. You know when you're the only sober guy at the party?
Yeah.
And just how much fun you're not having?
Yep.
Everybody drank, even my wife, and she was underage. But they gave her I mean, she was like, what was this, 2008? I mean, she was like 19, I think. But I mean, she was in a controlled environment. She was at home. She was with her parents. Yeah, she got pretty wasted. Not falling over, but she got very happy. It was one of the first few times that she ever did with her mom. It was hilarious. But she was like, when she gets drunk, she gets very lovey and loving on me. And then she's laughing. And you know how loud she can be. Crank it up. It's even louder.
Yeah.
And it's okay when you're doing it with, because you're laughing, you're having a good time too. You're not even noticing it. But when you're sober, and all you can think about is, I'm on the last chapter of this freaking game. I just got past the Shadow Moses chapter.
So you're at like the point where it's like
it's in game,
30-minute video.
Well, okay, because the in the middle of the game in chapter 3, there's almost a 30-minute cutscene. And then at the end of the game, it's almost an hour by the time it's all said and done. Because you have the ending, and then you have the credits, and then there's a mid-credit scene that's about 15 minutes. That pretty much closes everything. Whatever few questions could possibly remain are answered, and they put the series in a bow. And this game is nothing, if anything, this game is sheer fan service, is what this game is. For everybody who loves the Metal Gear series up until that point, this game gave you everything you wanted.
Well, more. You also allowed you to repair the first Metal Gear and fucking play with it, which was awesome.
That was the last thing that I played before I left for the party.
And you're like,
I just got to play Metal Gear Solid Rex and pilot the damn thing and fight Metal Gear Ray. That was the boss fight. And it was, this is amazing. Now, what's cool about this limited edition set, which is only available at GameStop, it comes with, your standard game, right? And it comes with a Blu-ray making of, which I definitely want to watch. I haven't done it yet. But what's cool about my copy, I mean, because this is just stupid shit for me as a collector. It would be very easy to lose the original copy, but this copy's pristine and is still the not for resale thing that comes with it. So I was stoked when I found this at Disc Replay, which is alive.
Right.
It lives.
And they're back to buying. But, don't bring your stuff there because they're going out of business.
Everything is going to be just fine. Now, shortly after, in about 3 years later, 2009, they finally released the first revision of the PS3, and that's called the PS3 Slim. And this took out 100%. There's no PS2 backwards compatibility with this model. However, all PS1 games will play. There might be some compatibility issues per title via the emulation, so it's going to be some games may not run 100% perfect. They did, though. There's a whole list that you can find online where they detail issues with certain games, especially some of them are your top-selling ones, and they went in and they patched to make sure those games would play on there. Like FF9 had a big issue, and they patched it.
Right.
That is so cool. That is like, they did not have to do that whatsoever. But one of the games that came out, and this is in 2007 or 8, but there was a whole series on here. And you know which one I'm going to next. And that is the Uncharted series.
Yeah.
So Uncharted 1 came out. And by the way, these are what the greatest hits cases look like for these. They're all red. Uncharted 1 came out, and this is made by Naughty Dog, and of course they're the ones that made before that Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter. Now they're shifting gears and they're going towards a more action-oriented, realistic title. And I say realistic. Uncharted is essentially what would happen if Indiana Jones met Tomb Raider. Like, that's the easiest way to put it. Nathan Drake, the main character, he's a wisecracking. You can almost say he's a damn adrenaline junkie because of all these situations he keeps putting himself into. However, what I like about it is that he is the game is all centered around him being so damn lucky. He makes it out of all these things that he shouldn't live through. He gets hurt. He gets, he gets all these things. He flies through the air. He dangles from a train off of a mountain. He runs across an escape. There's in Uncharted 3. There's this whole cruise ship that sinks, and he's in the ballroom and he's swinging across. He's jumping across chandeliers. His water's rushing in the damn thing. Then of course he's hanging from a net from a cargo plane while trying to dodge stuff. And then crashing in the middle of the desert. There are things that he should not be able to survive, and yet always does. And then he's there with basically just like this, okay, not doing that again. And gets up, dusts himself off, and he's getting attacked by somebody. And it's funny, he will actually mention in the games, like, really? Like, I didn't even do anything to you.
Right.
And it's funny, these are action movies in games. The Uncharted series, it's not meant. You're not meant to sit here and dissect the story 110%. They were able to make an action franchise exclusive to the PlayStation. Their first one's a little rough around the edges with the controls. The second one is a lot of people's favorites. I am torn between 2 and 3 because I got all 3 of these when 3 came out. 3 had come out in November of 2011, and I was like, you know what? They were selling the first 2 for $20 in a double pack. That's why mine are both red. And I didn't own them, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try them out. I remember Rob playing it; he liked it. Wes played it. I'm gonna see what I'm gonna see what the big deal's about. And if I don't like them, I'm out $20.
Right.
And then I remember over a Christmas shutdown. Started up 1, got done with it. All right. Started 2. I was hooked. I beat 2. And I got up and went right to the living room and said, and this is like midnight. I'm like, I'm going to the store. She says, what for? I'm like, to buy a game. You just got those games. Yeah. I got done with them, and now I have to go buy the third one because I'm like, I can't now. I know it's out. I can't stop. These games are freaking awesome. They are also on the list of best-selling PlayStation titles, which is awesome because when you look at the best-selling list of PlayStation titles, 2 and 3, Uncharted 2 and 3, are in the top 10. And they're right neck and neck with each other for sales. And then Uncharted 1 is what? Top 15, nearly top 20?
Yeah. But technically, Uncharted 3 is the 5th highest selling.
Yeah, and that is awesome, dude. That is awesome.
And then Uncharted is 6th.
Uncharted 2 is 6th.
Yeah, Uncharted 2, I'm sorry.
And then MGS4, like I said before, that's actually on there as well. But the slim redesign for the PS3 did them tons of favors. They were able to bring the price down to about $300. And that's when, and then you had games like Uncharted, you had games like MGS, you had, now systems start selling. Now they start rolling out. And you had a lot of other cool games that came out around the time, including a little series called Little Big Planet. There were 2 of them, 1 and 2. And my wife loves these games. They are weird, multiplayer, customization, platforming games. They're kooky as hell. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're not kooky. They are kooky. But you can customize These things were DLC hogs. They had so many different skins, so many different things you could do for levels. Like on the very back here, okay, so the main character is like the Sackboy, right? And then on the back, there is Sackboy dressed up like Meryl from Metal Gear Solid 4. And of course, they have a whole set, a whole package for Final Fantasy 7.
Oh yeah. I mean, how can you not?
Exactly. And the really cool thing is that you have levels throughout the game. You have like a story mode to go through. But then there's online levels that people create. And it's like a 2.5D perspective. It's a little weird. It feels weird to control them at first until you get used to it. They're not my favorite games. They're not my cup of tea. But if she's ever feeling like she wants to play, I have played with her because there are some puzzles that you can only do with multiple people.
Right.
And I remember there was one that we needed 3 or 4 people for, and we had to go get Wes and have him come out when we lived with him and Rob, and we all had to like do something that way she could get this one thing that she was missing. Well, I have it here. This was a cool pickup that I got not too long ago. I think I might have showcased it, but we talked about Killzone. They came out with a Killzone trilogy. Of course, they had Killzone 2, which was an early launch, and then they did have 3. And then they remastered in HD, because this is the era when the HD remasters first started. They remastered the first one from PS2, and you can get those on here. They are on 2 different discs, and one of them is I think if you put the Killzone one that has 1 and 2, I think one of them is a download. Like it downloads off the disc. PS3 was weird about that. But like I ended up getting a Slim, my original 60 gig fat. I bought Rob out of it. I paid him an extra $300 so I could buy it off of him, so I could trade it for a guitar. He ended up buying his own PS3 before that, and he still owned half of mine because I just used the fat one. And I'm like, a buddy of mine wants this. I want his guitar, and I'm gonna buy a Slim with the tax money. And that's what we did because I noticed the fan was starting to get a little bit loud. He goes, I just want to play a few things on it. I don't care. And he had it for quite a few years until I saw on Facebook a couple years ago that it finally died and went out. And I was like, took the hat off, which I would have done if I wouldn't wear my wear my headset. But take the hat off to it, and you definitely lasted longer than what you should have. And here's another couple of games that are cool to talk about on the system. Infamous, the first 2 Infamous games. The first 2 Infamous games are really freaking good. The one that came out on PS4 was not as good as these.
It was fun.
It was
a fun game.
I'm not going to say it was bad, but these games had mood. These games were the whole good and evil thing really meant something with your character, and the story, but the stories behind these games are really cool. I played more of the first one than I have the second one, but they're definitely games to check out, and they're not that expensive. They're not that expensive at all.
Not anymore.
For the system now. Oh, I got to talk about these games before I move on. Sorry, I've got 20 games to talk about. So and most of these, not all of these games are exclusive, as I showed, like Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. But these 2 are. Mod Nation Racers.
Yeah.
This game came out of nowhere for me, and this game was made by Well, I guess there's also it's San Diego It's San Diego, and this game is a kart racer, and it's completely customizable, like Little Big Planet, and you can get nearly anybody and everything. That people got so crazy with creation. The online was just shut down for this not too long ago, which sucks. But you can literally creating your tracks was so easy. It was really cool to do. I remember playing this for the first time when we were supposed to have band practice, and it got canceled, and I was already over there. So we ended up just hanging out and playing this with like 4 players. It was like me, Nate, Tony, and Tony's girlfriend, and we all played this. And I remember downloading a Vegeta character. It was kart racing as Vegeta from Dragon Ball. And then this next one, I've actually streamed about an hour of this before. It's actually on our YouTube channel, 3D Game Heroes.
Yeah.
This game is also customizable with your main character. You can make him look like anything you want almost. And they have awesome presets for you too. This game is basically Legend of Zelda. But it knows it.
Yeah.
It knows what it is silly. It's funny. It's made me laugh out loud more than once. It's this game. If you can find this game, get it. If you like Zelda in any way, shape, or form, you're doing yourself a disservice by not playing this game. This game is a love letter to Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, it is.
This next one, I'm going to group those three together. I'm going to shift gears now and talk about the big online outage of the PS.
Yeah.
So Xbox has its red ring of death. That is what really marred that generation for PlayStation, right? For Xbox, they really marred it for them, where it just cost them $1 billion. Well, this was this was Sony's big $1 million mess up, and they got hacked. I don't own this game, but it was they released a brand new SOCOM game, and it was online only. And it came out the week that the hack happened. Now, the hack, basically someone went in and got a bunch of credit card information, and Sony shut the servers down for a month.
Yep.
You couldn't do anything on them. So there hasn't been another SOCOM game since. And the hack really slowed PlayStation's momentum. It really did a lot of damage. And a lot of people who have been switching over or also buying a PlayStation were burned pretty bad by it.
Yes.
There are some people who did get their stuff stolen and utilized. There was a class action lawsuit, and people were compensated by you could choose up to 2 free games among a list, everybody. And that list included PS3 and PSP, a few PSP titles. You know, it was a bad time, an awful time for Sony, and the fact that they didn't clearly communicate what was going on until a little later, like a little bit into it. You know, the PS3 can be looked at as PlayStation's like stumble, as like in general. I mean, when you think about it, and I've said this before, Mike. When you think about it, and the 360 outsold the PS3 by like 500,000 consoles. That's crazy.
Right.
It's like 80-something million, neck and neck. And the 360 is Xbox's best-selling console. The PS3 is PlayStation's worst-selling console.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a while that, what was it, like NASA or something was using the PS1s because they were reliable in space or something ridiculous. I got to look this up. I remember this being the thing, and I'm going to look it up because, I
don't know about that. But do you remember when people were actually scared about the PS2 saying that they could launch a nuclear missile? They could use it as a computer to launch a nuclear missile.
I think they said something like that.
While you're looking that up, I'm going to talk about this game really fast. This is not an exclusive for this, for the system, but it's one of the only couple places where you can get the game, and that is Ghostbusters, the video game. And this is pretty much Ghostbusters 3. This has the entire original cast together. You play as a new guy who doesn't say anything.
All right, I found it. So, the CPU from the original PlayStation is the CPU that guided the probe to Pluto.
Awesome.
That's actually a pretty big deal. Wow.
That is awesome.
NASA engineers don't need power; they needed reliability. Yeah, nothing else needs to be said.
It's a good thing. Well, it's a good thing that they. It's a good thing that they didn't put the 360.
No, right?
Yeah, the thing would have burned up by Mars. Anyway, Ghostbusters video game has the entire original cast except for Rick Moranis. His character's not even in this. And the guy that played the mayor in the original 2 movies, he had since passed on. So Bill Murray's brother played him. But
It's actually a really fun game.
Oh, this game's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. I played it and I was like, wow, this is literally Ghostbusters, the movie.
Well, and it was
playing as a game.
Well, and it's not the first movie. It's a sequel to the first movie. It has all the
No,
stuff.
no, I'm not saying. I'm saying it's basically you're watching another movie.
Yeah,
it's an interactive Ghostbusters movie is what it is.
And what I love the cool stuff that they did with it. They, of course, making it a sequel to the first game or first movie with Gozer allowed you to recreate a few iconic scenes from the first movie while still making it not just an adaptation of it. Because there's a scene early on, right in the back, where you're hanging off the side of a building, fighting Stay Puft. And then there's a point where Slimer gets out and goes right back to his hotel. And you're running through the hotel chasing him, and you're in the ballroom, fighting Slimer. And then just like in the first movie where the hotel manager or the whoever works there, he's all mad about all the damage caused. And now he's mad because the haunting came back.
Right.
And he's like, I want my money back. And Bill Murray says, now, in the fine print, it says that we only cover hauntings for at least 5 years. After that, we don't cover it. But I love it. I've only played through the game once. That was years ago. I need to play through it again, maybe on stream or something. Would be really cool. They do a lot of cool things where you actually go into another dimension. A lot of things in this were taken from early drafts and ideas that were for Ghostbusters 3. And that's awesome that they went ahead and made a game and they were able to get the original 4 guys, including the gal that played the receptionist. I can't remember her name at the moment. Annie Potts or Annie Potts. Something like that. Anyway, she's in it. There's also a lot of cool little Easter eggs. They at one point when you're walking around the fire station, they have Vigo the Carpathian's painting in there, and he's just talking crap, and he can't do anything.
What do you want to know her name in the series or the person that plays her?
I didn't care. I just was like, it's not that big a deal.
Oh, okay. Well, I pulled it up. You were like, hey.
No, I didn't.
I can't remember her name. And I'm like, okay, cool. Annie Potts. Okay. So, you were right.
All right. Yeah, I'm on it. Anyway, pick up that game. You can find it. That game's another game that's like in the teens to $20-ish range. It's definitely it's a game that's worth picking up for even if you have a 360, pick it up, man. But then I got some more games here. What should I do next? All right.
I don't know which side, left or right. Left or right. I don't know.
All right. So I've got what they ended up coming out with a game, 2 games that were on the store. Right. They were only downloadable, but they did come out with a physical copy of them, and that is Watchmen. The End Is Nigh. These are 2 beat 'em up games, but the cool thing about this is it actually comes with the movie.
Is that kind of neat?
It has 2 discs in here where it has the game. It has both games, part 1 and part 2, and then it has the director's cut of the movie. And I don't see this around too often, much less in good enough shape, because this is one of those cardboard cases that just has a slip cover. And I saw this at our local game exchange when it was around, and picked it up. And the next time I saw it, it was at Disc Replay. It was more expensive. So
I miss our game exchange.
I do too. It was another place to go, but the reason why I showed that is because of its uniqueness. It comes with the movie. It comes with 2 downloadable games on a disc, and these next 2 ones also are downloadable games. You have Flow, Journey, and Flower. Where Journey is a really high-rated game. It's an online game where you run through with some. There's no chat. You don't even know who it is, and it doesn't tell you who it is until after the game.
It says game is completed with so and so.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then this is one that I picked up I think last year because it's just one of those things that you just don't find too much of. It's the best of the PlayStation Network with When Vikings Attack, Sound and Shapes, and Tokyo Jungle and Fat Princess. I've actually played When Vikings Attack and Fat Princess. We had those on the Vita. I remember me and Kate playing those on the Vita because she got really big into the Vita for a minute. And then
it was a good console, just underutilized.
Yeah. These next two games here are both from the same development company, Quantum Dream, Heavy Rain.
Which Heavy Rain is one of the highest selling PS3 games, probably 12th.
Mm-hmm. But then also Beyond Two Souls, and I have this version, the Steelbook, because Mike talked me into it.
I wouldn't do anything like that. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I've got you back.
We were there, and you're like, "Oh, it's the Steelbook." I'm like, "Just buy it." And you're like, "Well, I don't really know. Just buy it." Well, I just buy it. Okay. Like it took me 3 tries, and you're like, "Okay," and you picked it up and walked around with it. Because we went back to Disc Replay. Yeah. So we had done our running, and then you went back to Disc Replay because you didn't want to buy something there.
It was Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, you wanted to look other places. So then you came back to buy it, and then I talked you into that one.
So Heavy Rain, I remember playing the demo. These are like action adventure games or just adventure games, like the click and like the old school computer where you go through and they make you do small meaningless stuff like moving the stick a certain way to pick a game up and do this. But they do it in such a way where you're so used to the movements and so used to moving your character around that when the game picks up speed and gets you into fights or gets you into moments, you're already that movement and all that other stuff, the meaningless stuff, ties you in. You're already invested into every action. That way you're there and you're right there with him in the fight. Heavy Rain involves a murder plot where kids get kidnapped and then murdered. The Heavy Rain's a pretty depressing game, but it's also a really cool game too. Beyond Two Souls, a lot of people don't like this. A lot of people are very critical of this. This is starring Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe, and 2 really great actors.
Yes.
And this game made me cry. It was one of the few games that actually made me cry. I was so invested into the characters that the ending that I got actually brought tears to my eyes. This one involves Ellen Page's character seems to have like this psycho or supernatural ability to communicate with a spirit. And of course, Willem Dafoe plays a scientist, and they're trying to harness her. Basically, she can have super abilities using that. And what's cool is that it's revealed that they were born twins, and her brother died, but her soul is still tied to her. So he's always around her, and then she can feel and communicate with him, and he can communicate back with her, and it's like at times you can press a button and you'll go out of her field of vision into her brother's or the spirit's field and move around as the spirit and go mess with stuff. So when you think about it, it's like you can be mischievous, you can start messing around with stuff and like really messing with people, and she'll get mad, stop it, or even get to the point where you're like she's trying to hook up with a guy, right? And they're like getting busy, and then you can do like be the spirit and start like smacking stuff, and it kind of scares the guy off, and she gets mad, because as the brother you're trying to protect your sister. Hey, get away from her, And she's like, "Will you just leave me alone?" You know, it's a really interesting and weird concept. But what's that?
Nothing. No, it's just yeah. I mean, it's an interesting but unique concept.
So in 2012, 3 years after that, they would revise the system again in what's called as the PS3 Super Slim.
Yeah.
And I actually want one of these. I don't have one, and there's no disk drive in this, so that's one less thing to fail. On these, the very top of it is like a slider, and in these hard drives, you can get up to like a 500 gigabyte hard drive in them. I mean, it's pretty big
for a good price too.
Yeah,
they're pretty cheap.
I know, and like
quit.
Come on, doggy, leave him alone.
As he comes over, he's like, "Play with me."
It's not a Game Addicts podcast without a
foot.
Yeah, without like an appearance from our mascot. So I mentioned earlier about HD remakes. There's a lot of them that came out here, and I've got a couple to show. The God of War collection. This has got 1 and 2. You can also get a version of this that has the 2 PSP titles in it as well.
Chains of Olympus and
Ghost of Sparta.
Ghost of Sparta.
The other one. This one, God of War 3. I got this one out. This is an exclusive, big game for that as well. But
one of the top selling ones as well.
Absolutely, and there's the PS4 HD remaster of this one.
Yeah,
but
surprise.
One I wanted to talk about is for an HD remaster is Resident Evil. This is the GameCube remake remaster. I have a physical copy that I ordered from like Hong Kong. And what's cool about it?
I remember that
because the PS3 is region free. You can buy games from other regions, whether they're Europe or Japan or wherever, and play it. And the cool thing about this is that this is actually import friendly, where you can play the game. All the voices are in English, just like the original Resident Evil was. And you could you can change your language for the menus to be Japanese or English. And what's cool about this, the game went flying. Oh, that's because the case is broken. Nice. Make a mental note of that.
How did you break it?
I didn't break it.
You did. You're the only one that's owned it.
I haven't opened it in a long time. So, as you can see, the cover is Resident Evil, and it has a flip cover for Biohazard, the original name of the game. And what's also cool is that they give you 2 different manuals, one in English, one in Japanese. And I just think that is so cool. There's also a download code for special video, but I can't download it because the code is exclusive to the Japanese store. Which
that sucks.
Like, okay, so for the PlayStation 3, and it might be that way for the 4, but I know it was this way for the 3 and for the PSP, maybe even the Vita. If you create an account if you create in a Japanese account, you can access the Japanese store on your console. Like it's not exclusive to just that region. You can do it, but it has to be an account tied to that store.
Right.
Like the accounts that we have that we've already made for our PlayStations for North America, we're tied to the North American store. But you have to pick your region when you first go in, and then that's where you can get some of the more exclusive stuff. But I have to touch on this. It's guilty pleasure for me. No, it's not really a guilty pleasure. It's one of my favorite games of all time. You know it. I think you know what's coming. Mass Effect trilogy. So, Mass Effect 1 and 2 were exclusive to the 360. Now, 2 is only like a year. But Mass Effect 1 was developed before EA bought BioWare and was developed in partnership with Microsoft Studios. Microsoft Studios helped fund it, and they got a 5-year exclusivity deal for Mass Effect 1, which was up in 2012. That was the year that Mass Effect 3 came out. Mass Effect 2 came out a year later on PS3. It runs on the Mass Effect 3 engine, which is very similar, but it's just like an enhanced engine. So the graphics look better on the PS3 Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 3 looks just the same, but it has some frame rate issues, especially at the end of the game when a lot of crap's going on.
Yeah.
But when EA finally got or BioWare got the full rights to Mass Effect 1 back, they teamed up with Scaleform. Was that who did it? To port the game over to the PS3. And the only way to physically get the Mass Effect 1 disc is to own the trilogy in the States. Over in UK, you can get a standalone copy if you want. They didn't do a standalone copy in the States for whatever reason. It's only in the trilogy, or you can download it. But I played through the entire trilogy on both consoles.
Surprise.
Yeah.
How many times?
Only once on the PS3. 360 was a lot more because that's what I had it on before I ended up getting that. But the PS3, if I can be brutally honest, and I will say it, that the PS3 is not the best place to play it. If you have a choice, if you have the option, can you play the Mass Effect trilogy on PS3 and be perfectly fine? Sure, absolutely. But if you have the option of a PC, 360 or PS3, and you're like, I wonder where I should buy this, PS3 should be your last bet.
Right.
And it's just, Mass Effect 1 has auto-saving issues where it'll save. There's nothing wrong with that, but the game will freeze for like 20 seconds every time you load into a new area. Meanwhile, on the PC and 360, it'll stutter, but then it just like whoop, then you're in. That was the only issue with Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 2, on PS3, the issue that I encountered was, for whatever reason, I don't know if this is widespread or not, it just cuts off conversation. Sitting there trying to talk to your characters. Now, great, I played the game a million times. I don't need to talk to these characters. But I like to. It's part of it. It's part of the experience. And you'll be talking, and all of a sudden, it'll just skip that person's thing. And you're just like, I didn't hit a button.
What the fuck?
I know, and it did it more than once. It did it quite a few times. And then again, Mass Effect 3 was like, yeah, some frame rate issues. It doesn't run as smooth on the PS3 as it does on the others. Nothing game breaking there, but there was slowdown on anybody who's played Mass Effect 3 on the last run when everything's blowing up all around you and you're like, man, I'm in a war. We got to run to the beacon, and there's explosions, there's Reapers, there's everything. There was slowdown there, and I was just, everything up to that point was gravy, man. It was awesome, and I'm like, aw, whatever.
Right. It's only a small.
Yeah.
I mean, it is probably one of the most epic scenes of that, because it gives you the feel of, yeah, we're done. Like they're taking, that's it. We're not gonna win this, and this is the last hope.
This is our last push. The last game I have here, is one that I just still happen to have because I never sold it, and that's the PS3 copy of Grand Theft Auto 5. You put this version, if you have a PS3, and one reason why I like covering the PS3 and the 360 is because there's still a lot of people out there who maybe can't afford the newest consoles, the best consoles, or anything that's out right now. They're still on the last generation, or they're just now getting into gaming, and they're like, man, I don't want to go out and buy an Xbox One or PS4 or a PS5 or anything like that. Like, that'd be cool, but I can't afford $400 or $500. I can go and I can spend $100 and get a console and maybe get like a couple games. The cool thing is that all of these libraries for both 360 and PS3 are vast, and for the most part, pretty darn cheap to pick up on the second hand. I'm going to tell you, everybody, do not hesitate in thinking, well, should I get like GTA 5? Yes, absolutely. GTA 5 is one of the best games on that system. It's not an exclusive, But you put the PS3 version of this game next to the 360 version, you're not going to notice a difference. Not to the naked eye. If you're going to be sitting there and you're going to nitpick it, yes. But if you're just going to put this up on your TV, sit back with your controller and have a good time, you're not going to notice a play difference. The only thing that I can notice side by side is that the 360 version is a little brighter. That's the only thing that I can tell. Maybe that there's some frame rate issues here and there, but the game plays perfectly fine. No, go get that freaking game. You won't regret it. All these games that I mentioned today are games that, for whatever reason, you should probably try and look at to pick up. There's a lot more that I missed, and there's one big one that I haven't mentioned because I don't own my copy of it anymore. I sold it to our buddy Calvin.
Oh, wait. Nope, I had the PS4 version.
Yep,
I had the PS4.
I got the PS4 version right when it came out, and it was maybe a year later. Calvin was asking about it,
and you were like, "Play."
I'm like, well, he was asking about it for his kid. He goes, "I'm just gonna buy it," or he bought a copy of it on eBay. He got it, and it didn't work.
Right.
So then he sent it back. He goes, and then he got burned, and he's like, "I'll just go buy it from a store," and I'm like, "No, I have it." And then I can't. I think I might have just gave it to him, or like he forced me to take $10 or something. Like,
right?
Because I don't care, man. I got it, man. Just I want your kid to have a good time, man.
And that game would be the swan song of this PS3, and that would be The Last of Us.
The Last of Us is an amazing freaking game. It is the number 4 highest selling game on the console, sitting at 7 million copies sold. Of course, then it sold more on the PS4. It has a big sequel coming out on the PS4. And The Last of Us is also made by Naughty Dog. They're the ones that did, as I said, Crash and Jack. They also, now, after Uncharted, they did this new thing, and they did The Last of Us. And holy crap.
Yeah.
This game is a marvel at storytelling. It tells a story between two characters that takes its time to tell that story, and it definitely pays off by the end of it. It's not your standard zombie apocalypse game. It's got a cool survivalist aspect to it where you got to ration your... This game reminded me of what Resident Evil kind of was, but in a more immersed storytelling world.
Right.
And it's almost like where I think Resident Evil should have went. But I mean, Resident Evil wasn't always about this. Resident Evil was about biomutants or bioweapons, and the zombies were just like a side effect. You had these big things that they were building for war, and it was more on that. Whereas this was a plague of a disease, or a fungus that spreads, and they were able to really capture, like, you ever watch like the Earth, or like 20 years later, or like or Earth Without People, where they go through, it's like, here's what it would look like 50 years later, and it shows like everything all overgrown.
Yeah.
They were able to capture that very well.
They did a similar thing in Crisis with that.
And then, of course, the movie I Am Legend had that, where the planet starts taking its cities back, and it's like, nope, this is ours. And we have covered The Last of Us a lot here on the show in the past. It's both it was one of the games that, like, I insisted that you play.
Yes.
I brought it to you and said, you're going to play this. I knew enough about you to know what you liked in your games.
Yeah.
And I knew this game was going to leave an impression on you for sure.
It was the game, man. The game.
Because, I mean, when you switched over to PlayStation 3, it was right at the very end. I got quite a few people to switch over to PS3 from the 360s. I was a PS3 flag waver, man. I'm like, this system is awesome. It's maybe at times a notch under what the 360 can do due to some of its limitations with its hardware. But people who know that hardware, know how to use it and develop with that hardware, like Naughty Dog, like Santa Monica Studios, those games look top notch.
I'm trying to think. I think I still had a 360 at the time.
No, you did not. It fell from the dresser.
No, that was I had a PS3 before I moved to that apartment, and it fell from the dresser because of my roommate was using it. He had moved it, like I had bought the PS3 and he had it in there, and my cat grabbed hold of the controller and pulled it down.
Well, your 360 fell, not your PS3.
That's what I'm saying. The 360, that did not fall for me. That fell for my roommate, which I had already moved. So I had already owned a 360 and currently owned one when I picked up a PS3.
Okay. Because the Last of Us came out in 2013, the year that the PS4 came out. And as you said, that game came out in June of 13, and then GTA 5 came out in September. And those two games were like the last big games that came out for it, because there was another Gran Turismo that came out after the PS4 came out.
6. It's horrid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't you play that?
No, I didn't play 6. I played Gran Turismo 5 Prologue, and it was still 5.35 million. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
Well, I have. Okay, so did you play Prologue?
Yes.
Okay, because the one you gave me is just Gran Turismo 5.
Oh, then that's the one I had because I was done with it. It was horrible. Horrible.
So, again, to reiterate, the PS3 has sold about 80 million copies. It was discontinued in North America October 2016. And then, so I mean, we're looking at a full 10-year lifespan. 11 years in Japan. It went out the next year. Of course, it can. It's a Blu-ray player, so you can do that. Of course, you can do all. They added on all those different apps and all of, like the Netflix and stuff like that. I remember having the Netflix Blu-ray disc. I wish I still had it. It was really interesting because of how they ended up doing it early on, where you had the you utilized the Blu-ray internet capabilities, Blu-ray Live or whatever, to do it, and was completely, utterly different. But there's a lot of cool things that you could have done with the PlayStation 3. Of course, you can hook it up with your PSP. And there were some games that had both a PSP and PS3 version, and you could copy saves back and forth.
You can also do that with the Vita.
You can do it with the Vita. Of course, you can also do that with certain PS2 games with the PSP.
Yes.
As well, because the PSP was kind of in the middle in between those two. But like all in all, even though there's a lot of things that mar the PlayStation 3, even though they had a lot of hiccups, even though this isn't the brightest moment, this was a learning moment for PlayStation to try and keep perspective. And if anything, I would say that they learned a lot, because they came in with the PS3 and completely flipped it around. And then we saw Xbox One make very similar mistakes.
They literally dropped the ball.
They did. And, it seems like Xbox is turning the ship to not do that the next generation after the one that we're currently on. It's like, we'll see. I don't think so. I think Phil Spencer's making a lot of great moves, really changing the way that Xbox is going to do business. PlayStation 5, all these rumors about PS3 reverse compatibility, because PS3 games can only be played on PS4 via PlayStation Now, and that kind of sucks, because there's a big, huge library for PS3 that can be utilized. That these games, the PS3, a lot of games couldn't output in 1080p. That was an issue they had with it, But 720p looks pretty damn good for most everything. But it would be really neat if the PS5 can actually just put the disc in it and it can emulate the PS3 software, because I have a full library, not a full, but I have a very full for me size, where I'm very happy with my PS3 collection. There's a lot of great games on here, and there's a lot to go back and look at, as whether you want to see where things were, or games that just aren't available anywhere else.
Right.
So, that being said, I think that about covers it.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty. I like I said, I was a late bloomer on this system, and then even between the systems, I had the 360 the first time around. It burned up, and I kind of was like, meh, and went back to PC, and then got a 360 later on, the Halo Reach Edition, and played it. Got back into it a little bit, and then you talked me into buying a PS3. Obviously, got Mass Effect on 360. There are a couple other games I got on there. Skyrim 360, but
yeah, Skyrim was not a very good game to get on PS3 at launch.
No, but I just couldn't. And I played a handful of games, but most of them weren't. They weren't anything special, like they weren't. I didn't play the Uncharted. Still have not played the Uncharted's. So I haven't really dabbed in that. God of War, of course, I played the God of Wars. I played every one of them.
Except the newest one.
Except for the newest one.
Which is like the best one.
I know.
The PS3, its legacy is going to be looked at mostly negative, I feel. I feel like people are going to look back and remember all the bad things and not remember too much of the good things that it did. But now is a great time to go out and start buying PS3 games because they're so cheap. If you go to your local game store or go to a GameStop, the sections for those games have gone down considerably. And there's just a matter of like we said, our local disc replay, we went back in there and it was barren because they were going to be closing down. Now they're going to be sticking around. But I don't know if their PS3 section is going to be as big as it once was. It was massive, and it was awesome because then there was games that you could go in there and be like, oh, I want to get that, but I'm going to wait for a little bit to see if the price will drop just a little bit more on this one game that I'm wanting to get or whatever. And it was just this system. I still have my 2009, 2010 model that I got, the like the Slim. I still have that one. It still runs to this day. And as I said, I would love to get a Super Slim.
Mine doesn't.
No, yours doesn't. But like you bought yours used, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's anything, but they definitely got some love and play before Mike got a hold of his. Mine is very well played. I would love to get a backup system just in case, or hopefully the PS5 will play all these titles right out of the box. And
that's the hope.
That's the hope. But I'm holding my breath, but that is the hope. Thank you guys for joining us here today as we look back and reminisced on the PS3. There's only one thing that I really think that I didn't touch on, and that was the whole – I touched on it a little bit. It was the whole copyright patent thing with the controller, because when the PS3 first came out, it was the design of the DualShock, but it didn't have any rumble in it.
Right.
It was this they had they had motion like the Wii, and it was called the 6-axis, and it wasn't until like – almost 2 years later, almost 2 years later that the DualShock 3 actually came out. They actually settled it or whatever, and were able to come out with the DualShock 3. Because I remember in Metal Gear Solid 4, there's a whole scene depending whether or not you have a DualShock or a 6-axis.
Kind of reminds you of the first game.
Exactly, and
the first solid game.
Because Psycho Mantis makes a reappearance in 4 as a ghost. And he will tell you to put your. He'll try to read your memory card, and you don't have a memory card because it's all internal memory. And he's like, no memory card. Fine, let's try this then. Place your controller on the floor, as flat as you can. Are you ready? Yeah. And then he goes to do, and if it doesn't do it, then he'll like, no rumble, and then he'll blow up. But then if you have it, he goes, rumble is back, and then he like blows up anyway. But it was a small little thing. I ended up going out and buying a DualShock not long after they came out, to be honest with you. Like, I didn't really care because, I mean, I'm an old school gamer, dude. I remember gaming before we even had Rumble, you know?
Right.
So, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I like to have it. It just gives you a little bit more of immersion. But there's tons of other games we didn't even talk about on this console. Go do your research. Go look at some of these awesome games that are like, this thing has a huge library. If you want to get the backwards compatibility ones, like with the PS2, just beware, they are more prone to failure. They will overheat potentially. So I would suggest myself seeking out the Super Slim. They seem to be more cheaply built, but there's also newer components, and they've gotten better. You know, they're more smaller, and it's not going to overheat as much. And as I said, no disk drive, so it's one less thing to fail. The disk drives for the Slims and for the original models have been known to fail, and that means you can't put a disk in. So, in fact, I actually have a FAT somewhere around here that was donated by a coworker of ours that the disk drive failed, and they opened it up and replaced it with a different disk drive, and there's a switch on the side for putting yeah. So, and then that ended up failing. So, whatever, he just donated it, said, here's something for you to work on, and I think I messed with it once, and I haven't been able to get to work. But Mike, thank you so much for joining me here today. I know this console wasn't your strong suit, but I definitely wanted to cover it because it's one we haven't covered, and I definitely wanted to show this system some love. I love my PS3. I love my experience with it. It was something that, as I said, I just kept trying to champion it and tell people the good things about it. There were some negatives, sure, but at the end of the day, this is not a bad console to pick up and get games for.
No, it is not.
But thank you guys all for tuning in this week on the Game Addicts podcast. Of course, we're live at you every other week on live stream on twitch.tv/GameAddictsPlay, and the audio version comes out the very next day on Thursdays. Audio version on podcast services all around the world, and then on Friday the video version hits up on YouTube. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's our normal setup for our records. And if it changes, we'll do our best to let you know. It normally won't change too much because even when we pre-record shows like this, I'm going to air them in a live stream just as if we were live anyway. So, guys, thank you so much for checking us out. Go on under our social medias to keep up with us at Game Addicts Play on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, I've been Brando.
And I've been Mike.
Play Beyond, guys.
Play Beyond.
Hey.
Where's the baby doll?
That baby
doll. And the PS3.
This one?
Got to do the stare down. It's the stare down.
Yep. All right. The mouth of this damn thing, man. The mouth.
It's creepy. Like yeah, it's creepy.
And then the tears fall down, and then they suck back up.
And they come back up. Tears don't fall.
Play Beyond. Play Beyond, guys. See you later.
See you later.